Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. It has now been just over 24 hours since reporting by the New York Times revealed that a flag championed by the far-right Christian nationalist movement, a flag displayed widely by January 6 insurrectionists as they stormed the Capitol for Donald Trump, also flew all summer long last year over the beach house of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. And of course, that news about that flag came just days after we learned that Alito's home in Virginia also displayed an upside-down American flag in the weeks after the violent sacking of the Capitol, another symbol adopted and embraced by Trump's Stop the Steal supporters. In that case, Alito responded to questions from the Times with an emailed statement saying his wife, the wife, hoisted that inverted flag in a dispute with their liberal neighbors. Why? He doesn't say. But in the days since news of this second right-wing flag broke, there has been no response from Alito, no response from the court or its Chief Justice John Roberts, who now faces a growing chorus of voices calling for him to appear before Congress and explain the conduct of the members of his court. That is in addition to calls for Alito, at a minimum, to recuse himself from two hugely consequential January 6-related cases sitting before the Supreme Court over his explicit and obvious violations of regulations on judicial conduct.
If Justice Alito does not recuse himself from the Trump immunity case and the Fisher January 6th case, he will do irreparable damage to the Supreme Court.
He definitively needs to recuse himself.
Well, of course, he should recuse himself from these cases.
At a very minimum, he has to recuse himself.
He should recuse himself from any Trump-related cases.
Now, all this is happening on a day when the Supreme Court was open for business, handing down decisions on cases it heard this spring. It was possible they might even announce some action on one of those cases that people say that Alito should recuse from, Donald Trump's claim that he is immune from prosecution for his attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Now, that's a case that the High Court has sat on for months. In fact, check this out. It has now been 164 days, nearly half a year, since special counsel Jack Smith asked the justices to weigh in immediately on Trump's immunity claims, saying basically, look, I know the Supreme Court's going to want to weigh on this, and the American voting public has a right to know the outcome of Trump's case before the 2024 election. And the court rejected that request, and they waited. And they are slow walking their decision now. So here we are now, nearly half a year later. It's harder and harder to think that someone like Sam Alito, whose household flew flags supporting the insurrection over not one but two of his houses, is in any way qualified to be a person who makes judgments on these cases. The court did not announce a ruling today in the immunity case. Who knows when and if they ever will. But the 6-3 conservative majority, the same conservative majority that destroyed abortion rights in Dobbs, the majority that now boasts multiple members who have flagrantly violated basic judicial ethics, covering everything from undeclared gifts to obvious conflicts of interest to open politicking, all of which apply to all the federal judges below the Supreme Court, that majority threw open the floodgates for Republican-led racial gerrymandering schemes. Court conservatives this time sided with a redistricting plan by South Carolina Republicans that pulled thousands of black voters out of a key battleground district. In a decision that was authored by Samuel Alito, the majority agreed with those Republicans. They weren't trying to disenfranchise voters of color. They were trying to disenfranchise Democrats, and whoopsie, most of them happen to be black. See how that works? It's a decision that will make it easier for Republicans to box out voters of color as long as they can argue their gerrymandering is based on political identity first and race second, a ruling that endangers the basic principle of one person, one vote. Another act of right-wing steamrolling that is the apotheosis of what the Trump era has wrought. We keep learning more daily about just how unaccountable they are. When a justice like Sam Alito flies this pro-insurrectionist flag, right-wing flag, not once but twice over his homes, the same flag flown by billionaire Republican donor Leonard Leo, who not only handpicked Trump's Supreme Court nominees, but also Alito and Thomas, and then proceeded to give both of them hundreds of thousands of dollars in gifts, or at least facilitate those, and trips in recent years. They're all part of the same club. I'm just a judge. Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito didn't have to fly those flags. to be a true conservative friend of the Trumpist agenda. This is what sticks with me, right? Think about this. I mean, Sam Alito is one of the most powerful reactionaries in the country, arguably the most. His court opinions, speeches, media appearances, he could just do that. Why did he fly the flags? He had to go an extra step and advertise. Take that flag in his vacation home, right? It's a signal from Alito about who he thinks he answers to. He knows he's not supposed to do that. He knows any other judge would get in trouble. You can't do that. But he thinks he answers to no one. We'll see if he's right. At the minimum, it suggests a disturbing readiness to keep pushing past any boundaries, as the movement that Alito is clearly a member of looks to destroy the current American constitutional order. In the Republican primary campaign, Nikki Haley became a kind of avatar for Never Trump Republicans, for the millions of people who are either still registered as Republicans or used to be and still identify at some level as such, but are fundamentally disgusted by what the party has become. And it seemed clear that Haley would just end up where almost every professional Republican politician ends up, which is ultimately just rolling over. And yesterday, she made it official. I'll be voting for the guy I told you was unstable and unhinged.
I will be voting for Trump. Having said that, I stand by what I said in my suspension speech. Trump would be smart to reach out to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me.
He would be smart. That's good advice. I'm glad you're giving him advice. One of the last people who had represented some sort of internal party resistance to the monstrous authoritarian vision of MAGA, and Donald Trump is now endorsing him. So there's that. George Conway was once a Republican. He's an attorney and a contributing writer at The Atlantic, and he joins me now. I think the odds of this moment happening were close to 100%.
Yes.
But I suppose it is definitive, if there was any question about the Republican Party, what it is and what it means at this moment.
It's a cult. I mean, that's the only way you can describe it. And everyone has, it consists of basically two groups of people, mostly. Some people who have basically completely lost it. You know, the people we see in the House of Representatives. And then there are people who are basically afraid to call out that so many people have lost it, including, that's basically what just happened here with Nikki Haley. And the person who has really lost it the most is Donald Trump. I mean, he's the crazy one, and everybody is getting more crazy than he is. And as Nikki Haley pointed out when she was telling the truth for a couple of weeks in the spring, I mean, he's mentally unstable and he's getting worse. And we can see it every day in the courthouse. We can see it when he's standing out there complaining about the temperature, when thermometers in the courtroom say it's 74, 75 degrees, he's saying it's freezing. He's the lies about the election, he's talking about his friend Hannibal, praising Hannibal Lecter. I mean, this guy, he is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he's getting, as Nikki Haley rightly pointed out, he's getting worse.
You put up this billboard outside. Is it near Doral or Mar-a-Lago?
It is near Mar-a-Lago. It is a couple of exits south of where if you, for example, were at Mar-a-Lago and you happen to want to play golf at the Doral Resort, right, you go onto I-95, you drive south, and like one or two exits on the right, you will see this sign, either on the way up or on the way back or both. And I thought, on a lark, I decided, hey, that's a good place to put the sign. I'd been making some hats that say that, kind of like the MAGA hats, except blue and white, and some bumper stickers. And a fellow named Claude Taylor, who runs this PAC called the Mag Dog PAC, has been putting up not bumper stickers, but billboards. And, he texted me just, I think maybe yesterday or the day before, we had a few text exchanges, say, hey, I'd like, whoa, how much would it cost to put one of these up? And I thought about putting it up at the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln Tunnel, but it turns out he's not going to Bedminster this summer, some reporters told me, because he's, the campaign's going to be run out of an office near West Palm Beach Airport. So this was the perfect location, and I hope he sees it, and I hope it amuses him as much as it amuses me.
I think he will notice it.
Yeah.
You said yesterday, we can talk about this division between people who have lost it and people who are afraid to speak up about that. You said this yesterday about the upshot of the Haley endorsement and the Alito flag. A lot of people on the right have lost their minds. A lot of the people on the right are afraid to say it. And I think that one of the things that's a little chilling about the Alito news is that he's in category 1 as opposed to category 2, right? I mean, this is your circle, George. These are your people, man. You spent your whole career around these folks.
You keep insulting me like that, I'm going to leave.
But that's true. I mean it just is a historical, sociological fact.
I can't explain it. I mean, I think there has been this steady deterioration in the sort of the psychological health of a good many people on the right. I mean, why would you? I mean, I'm not.
Why would you do it?
Talking about why would you do this?
Can we talk about this? This is the thing that I find so.
Why would you do this?
I find it so fascinating. Like I can imagine. Can you imagine? Imagine, George. Imagine yourself. Okay, 10 years ago, and you're talking to a young, up-and-coming 45-year-old. 42-year-old, like Federalist Society, really bright Supreme Court clerk, highly pedigreed district court judge. And they're like, I'm going to fly this flag over my house. Like, obviously your advice would be, are you out of your mind? Don't do that. Why would you do that? Right. You're a federal judge. You can't do it, but also don't do it. Why would you do that?
Right. No, it's completely, I just can't fathom it. I mean, I don't know what to think about this other than it's just a horrible judgment. I mean, if it's a gag, it's a horrible judgment. If it means something, it's even worse. I can't fathom it.
Well, luckily, judgment has nothing to do with the job that he has for the rest of his natural life. George Conway, thank you very much.